Hi, I'm Todd Downs, author of Bicycling Magazine's Guide to Complete Bicycle Maintenance and Repair. Right now we're going to replace a brake cable. Tools that you'll need for replacing a brake cable will be a 5mm hex key, a cable cutter, and a hand file. First thing you'll do when you're replacing your cable is snip the crimped end off of the brake cable itself. You'll sometimes find it's easier to get the cable out of the brake and the bike if you also snip it in the middle of the line, whether it's near the brake caliper or up here at the top tube. This is just so you don't have to pull the crimped portion of the cable through all that housing. It can get snagged. Loosen up the anchor bolt and pull away your cut remnant of cable. Up at the handlebar, turn the barrel adjuster and its lock nut so that these two slots line up with the matching slot on the front of the brake lever, and then the cable will just slip right out. On a road bike, you won't have that feature. You'll have to actually thread the cable all the way through the brake lever. Remove the cable in the front section of housing, being sure to save any special ferrules that might be required for your frame. If your housing is held on by zip ties, you'll need to clip those. Pull those out and discard them. Remove the rear section of housing. And again, save the special ferrule. If you've done any adjusting with the barrel up front, you don't necessarily want to wind it all the way back into the brake lever so that it's tight, but have it wound out just a turn or two so that you have some adjustment in both directions if you need to use it after your installation. There are two types of housing on your bike, one for brake and one for derailleur. The difference between the two is the construction of the steel inside the plastic coating. Derailleur wire has linear strands that resist compression and allow the housing to maintain its length so that precision adjustments like a derailleur adjustment will stay constant. Brake housing is spirally wound, which gives it a great deal more compression strength. But as the housing flexes, the length of the housing will change slightly. So it's not ideal for precise adjustments, but that little bit of elongation in the housing isn't going to be something that you notice when you're squeezing a brake lever. If you were to try and use derailleur housing for braking purposes, the amount of compression on the housing could actually cause these linear strands to want to burst out of the plastic coating. So definitely don't try it. So now you've got the correct housing selected, you'll take a length of it. You'll line it up, set it in the lever barrel adjuster, determine where you're going to cut it, where it goes into the frame mount, and swing the handlebar about 90 degrees or a little more, and set the housing so that it's just a nice smooth arc around the head tube. And hold it with your thumb right where you're going to make that cut. If you compress a burr into the housing, you'll just want to clean that up with your cable snips. Cut it so that that spiral wound steel inside the housing stays in a circle around the inner core. With your rear length of housing, you still want a nice smooth curve. That just makes it a lot easier for the cable to run through smoothly. Mark it with your thumb where you're going to snip it off. And use your cable cutters. With your housings cut off, use a hand file and take the end of the housing down as smooth as you can. You want a nice square end so it doesn't tend to want to compress and pinch in on the wire. Put ferrules on the end of the housing If your frame uses special ferrules, replace those. Put your housing sections back into place. Use a couple of small zip ties to secure the housing in the rear section down to the frame. Install your front housing section. And then thread in your cable. These rubber donuts are handy. They just slip onto the cable where there's a long exposed section, so that if the cable tends to bounce, the rubber donuts hit the painted surface of your frame rather than the steel cable. Pull your cable tight. Slip it through the cable anchor. On a disc brake like this, you'll need to rotate the brake arm forward, or on a caliper brake like you might have on a road bike, you'll just need to squeeze the caliper. There is a tool you can use. It's called a fourth hand tool. It works by crimping down on the cable and then expanding away, stretching the arm. Snug down the cable gently at first and then give your brake lever a squeeze to make sure the cable feel is how you like it. And that's just how I like the brake lever feel. Snug the anchor the rest of the way down. Use your cable snip. You don't want this tail end of the wire to be more than about 3/4 of an inch long. Any longer than that, and it could potentially wag and get into the brake disc and lock up the wheel of your bike. If it happens up front, it can be dangerous. Put an alloy crimp on the wire and crush it in place, and you're ready to ride. I'm Todd Downs for Bicycling Magazine, and that's installing a brake cable.